Hello there. Welcome to our video for today. I wanted to make Wednesdays spiritual days. This could be a theme where we discuss world religions, or, which is the case for tonight's video, elements of my own faith. So, and by world religions, I do mean including different branches of Protestantism, Roman Catholicism. But for tonight's video, I wanted to show some of my Orthodox icons that I've collected over the years. I've been slowly collecting them one by one for the past, since 2022, so almost 4 years. So I kind of want to go in chronological order, but I'll go at the rate in which they pop up. So for this first one, it's not really an icon as much as it is more of a tapestry, but it's the first Orthodox image that I acquired. This was back when I was still more so identifying with agnosticism or atheism, but in all honesty, at that point I was more agnostic. It's an Ethiopian. Ethiopia has a large Orthodox population, and it's the image of the Virgin Mary. So, I will not be tapping on any of these icons out of respect for the image, for the presence. But what I loved about this icon was just the serene look of the Virgin Mary's face. Whenever people discuss the value of women and the place that women have within society, there's a common phrase that says that we support women's rights and women's wrongs. I've never quite liked that phrase because it completely erodes any sense of upward ambition for a woman. I started kind of seeing and admiring the Virgin Mary as the pinnacle of womanhood, even as an agnostic. That's why her image was very attracting to me, where she seems, and she is, the model for what womanhood is supposed to be. A woman who is very grounded, self-sacrificial. A woman who is very modest and chaste. A woman who is very humble. A woman who doesn't submit to agendas for vainglory, but rather out of the purity of her heart. Fun fact, in her time, the Jewish women of the time, considered being the mother of the Messiah to be a great honor. All women during that time wanted to be the mother of the Messiah, and to this day Jewish women are still waiting for the coming of the Messiah, and they're excited to be the mother of the Messiah. Their idea of the Messiah is a general who is going to subject all of the Gentiles under basically slavery to God's chosen people. The reality of the Messiah turned out to be not a Jewish general who was going to ride in with all of these awards and medals, but rather a man who was the most perfect moral man, as Plato actually described, who because of his righteousness and because of his morality being so perfect, this imperfect world condemned him, hated him, so much so as to humiliate him and to treat him as the inferior class. The people of the day then regarded, the Jewish people of the day then regarded the Virgin Mary as a promiscuous woman who slept with a Roman guard, and that the Lord himself was, in their eyes, considered a bastard. So she in her time was subjected to a lot of humiliation, torture. She had to watch her son, her only beloved son, die a gruesome death that was completely unjust before a crowd of people chanting for his death. And the idea of her having to endure all of that is testament to her humility and self-sacrifice. So, I've always been very much engaged with the Virgin Mary. She was my entryway into Christianity. And also an Ethiopian store too, because I only visited because I like some of their teacups. And then I saw that and I was like, oh, I didn't know that Ethiopia had such a deep Christian history to it. And from there you kind of go through the whole Coptic, Assyrian, Orthodox Christian flavors. They have their differences as to the nature of Christ and as to like the way you're supposed to revere him. There's also old believers in Russia as well. There's all of these small idiosyncrasies that kind of deviate, but they all have kind of like a focused view as to the essence and spirituality that is Christ. This one is actually pretty new. I would argue it's one of my newer icons. This one is of Christ on the cross. I got this one actually in a Catholic store. I thought it was really nice. Here we have the apostles, I believe, and then Christ beneath the Father. And then I believe, I can't quite tell, 5, 10, I can't quite tell or know if those are the apostles or if those are angels. These are the apostles or angels, but here we have Christ beneath the Father, and then Christ being sacrificed. And then we have, I believe this is Mary with Matthew, I believe. And then I believe this might be Peter. I could be wrong on that one. Peter with the other two. Well, this one is Mary. I can't quite tell if this one is also Mary. I did a little bit of digging a while ago because the question came up with a friend of mine who is more agnostic. And he asked, well, you know, Mary had other kids, essentially is what he said. And I said, no, those are children from a previous marriage. And his previous wife was named Shalom, I believe. And they had a daughter who was also named Shalom, but those are also where Christ's brothers come from, is from Joseph's side of the family. And it's questionable whether he was divorced or widowed. And they say that Shalom, Christ's stepsister, or half-stepsister, was the third woman who came to the cave. And then there's some figures down here, but they're kind of hard to make. Beneath his feet. Right about here. So, this is an Orthodox image, but I did get it in a Catholic store. And the way that you know, oh, that's Latin. Perhaps it is kind of like a mix of the two then, because these are all Latin. See, Rex, well, he was crucified by proxy by the Romans, so they would have titled him King of the Jews in Latin, so that makes sense. But that looks Greek to me above the Latin, so anyways, this is another icon that I have that I quite like. So I'm going to set that aside. What I enjoy about these icons is that I do feel a sense of peace, protection, and blessing from them. Here we have an icon made out of red oak. These icons are meant to be very protective. They're meant to have deep spiritual roots to them, depending on the wood that it's made from. It's definitely orthodox, considering the crucifix having the footstool from where Christ's feet were laid upon, and then the title of how he was crucified, the crime he was charged with, just being basically a nuisance under the foot of a particular group. The first time I saw a crucifix like this, it caught my eye. I didn't quite understand why it was like this, why it was so ornamental. With my more low church, cultish sensibilities, I thought that they were just being very gauche, pretty much, with the ornamentation of the cross. Which, according to Jehovah's Witnesses, the cross itself is considered pagan. But then I came to love it because I realized it was the full cross almost come to life, where the more you strip away from it, the less you understand it, until you get to the point, which is where the Jehovah's Witnesses are, where they don't even regard the cross as the self-sacrificial tool that Christ was hung upon. So this is another icon that I have. Oh, it's not really an icon, it's more of a crucifix. Now we're getting into the icons that I really love. So, this is protective, but it's kind of falling apart. This little piece right here, I need to fix it. I'm not going to play with it too much because I don't want it to fall off too much. Here we have an icon depicting the awesome judgment. A fellow Orthodox friend of mine gave it away because he did not appreciate the depiction of the Father in his full form in this icon. He considered it to be heretical. So here we have the Father on his throne, and then we have the Son. Let me see if it'll capture it. The Father, and then the Son. And then here we have the cross, and here we have the Luciferian serpent who's eating whole those that are weighed and measured and found wanting. And then we have the apostles and all the saints in heaven. And what I really like about this, aside from just the detail to it, is the labeling of all the sins at the bottom. This is what makes it my favorite. Namely because we have, where's usury? Ah, here it is. We have usury. There we go, right there. I hate usury. Usury, according to the Catholics and the Orthodox and the Bible, is a mortal sin. Usury is the charging of compound interest. It's akin to theft and forcing people into unnecessary slavery. It destabilizes a society. So those that charge interest rates or try to take advantage of people financially, according to the awesome judgment, are not making it. So I quite appreciated that. That's actually something that made me start reconsidering Christianity as well, was just so it's confirmed to be morally wrong for people to do this. Great. Awesome. And then along the serpent's spine, we also have labeled sins that'll have you swallowed up by the serpent, along with deacons, priests, and bishops that failed their earthly duties. Something I've never quite understood is judging a religion by the individuals within it, even if they hold high responsibility. Namely because, number one, the fact that they do have that closer elevated position or relationship to Christ means that they're going to be judged at a higher stake than those who don't know, so that's their punishment. And number two, just because they as individuals have erred doesn't necessarily mean that the religion or God himself has erred. To me, I just see it as illogical. It's like saying you don't like the Beatles because another fan was like, mistook it for the Rolling Stones. It's like, it doesn't make sense to me. Here we have a gorgeously detailed icon. Once again, the Virgin Mary. I love how it shines in the light with these lights hitting it. So here we have Madonna and Child. This is in Russian. I really want to learn Russian. I've been practicing a little bit, but I need to do more, especially learning Church Slavonic. It would be fantastic. But I just want to point attention to these little details lining the icon. I really love admiring the Madonna and Child. It's what I find beautiful about apostolic Christianity is their veneration for the Virgin Mary, because it gives women a role model to model themselves over, a chaste, humble, just servile woman, but they also give that woman a sense of respect. So it really follows the moral principle of those that seek to become higher will be humbled, and those that are humbled will be elevated. So I highly admire the relationship of the Virgin Mary with Christendom, and also the relationship of the Virgin Mary with her son, where it's not just that she gave birth to God, the Word, but rather that she also has a motherly relationship with her son. That's like the crux of Christianity, is not only his sacrifice, but his birth and the relationship between him and his mother. I mean, for as much as people say that Christianity doesn't respect women, I saw that as just beautiful. I see that as far more respectful to women than the idea of having your heart broken over and over and over again in a secular world where you're just supposed to move on from it as if it never happened, and then compartmentalize that as maturity, when in reality it just means you're inducing numbness, almost depression, into your soul. Here we have the wedding feast. This is when, in Matthew, I believe, this is the first miracle that Christ performs, is turning the water into wine at a wedding feast. His mother, which is the model of intercession, when people ask, well, like Protestants, well, you know, there's no example of intercession, you praying for intercession from the Virgin Mary, you're supposed to pray directly to Christ. This was the model of intercession that was given to Christians, where instead of going directly to Christ, requesting he turn the water into wine because they've run it out, the jugs that he turned the water from into wine, the party members, I believe, and then the couple, the groomsman and the groom's bride, they instead went to the Virgin Mary. And the Virgin Mary, acting in their interest, then asks her son, because it's more likely for him, the Lord, to listen to your prayers if it comes through the Virgin Mary. There's a sense of, there's a greater sense of understanding the fullness of the faith when you know the relationship of Christ to his mother. When you eliminate his mother from the equation, you then lose a fuller understanding of Christianity. Thus, your petitions to Christ aren't that clearly heard, because there is more doubt and confusion as to what is the grander scope or grander image of Christendom. I really love this portrait. This one was gifted to me by my godmother. Wonderful woman. Very funny. Here we have an icon of Christ defeating death. I think, yeah, that's also Russian. Here we have Christ. I actually can't quite name the individuals depicted in this icon, but I do love this image of Christ defeating death. death by death, and upon those in the tomb bestowing life. Christ defeated death by death, and he defeated death by death, meaning that through his death he did go to hell, which is why there's that wooden statue in the Vatican depicting him bursting out of the hellish flames. But by defeating death, he traversed into the Sheol and then re-emerged, creating a path for souls to then be reconvened back to the Lord. But in order to reconvene yourself back to the Lord, you have to purify your soul in this life, allowing yourself to just let go of all of the earthly pleasures, earthly sins, and constantly looking towards repentance and the cross to try and cleanse yourself. So that's what I like about this icon. It's just a great reminder to just constantly self-evaluate, even if you think you're right. That could be stemming from pride, and just constantly remold yourself, that there is no fixed identity when it comes to a character or personality. We're all fallen, so constantly reevaluate yourself to gain a fuller image of the Creator himself. And lastly, this is the newest icon I've received. So new, in fact, that it's still in its package. I believe I received this from a friend of mine at church. It's a depiction of the Great Lent. I'm going to just remove it from its packaging. So here we have a couple of saints. It's actually a collection of saints around Great Lent. They're collected around the crucifix. Here we have Saint Mary of Egypt, who was formerly I can't quite say it on YouTube, but a mistress of the night, who then went through the desert to try and repent for her past ways. We have Saint Gregory of Palamas. This is a man who I believe he wrote a lot about suffering, and I think he was the one that wrote that tears are a way to sanctify the soul. Here we have Saint Theodore the soldier. I'm not quite too familiar with him. We have Saint Theodora. I believe it has to be the queen consort of King Justinian or Emperor Justinian from the Byzantine Empire. She also too was rumored, it could just be a slanderous accusation. She was also rumored to be a lady of the night, but I think that might have just been slanderous. Same way that they say Mary Magdalene was a lady of the night, it's slanderous. It came like 600 years after her death. These are all just statements against Christendom. Here we have Saint John Climacus. I'm sure I'm butchering his name. He was someone who also preached about the necessity for suffering. I quite forgot what some of his quotes were, but I think he promoted asceticism as a pursuit to try and rid yourself of the passions of this life. And then we have, of course, Saint Lazarus. I believe that's the Lazarus from Scripture. It could just be a different Lazarus, the one who defeated death, but never smiled again after coming back from hell, because once you witness hell, you'll never smile again. It's just, once you witness what that is, it's basically the worst characters that you see nowadays cranked up to like 1,000. All of them just eating each other alive. Here we have Saint Gregory, the dialogist. Now the powers of heaven serve with us. We have Saint Romanus the melodist. Hail, O bride without bridegroom. Saint Andrew of Crete. My soul arise, why are you sleeping? And Saint Basil the Great. All creation rejoices in you, O full of grace. So, that is my last icon for tonight. I hope you enjoyed. I would like to make another Orthodox special video going through my specifically Orthodox books, and also with my collection of rosaries and necklaces and other such Orthodox items. But it doesn't necessarily have to be only Orthodox. I can also go through other types of spirituality, mostly because to get to Orthodoxy, as the public might or might not have noticed, I had to go through quite a journey to reach this conclusion. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you sleep well.